Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Today moderator, very respected Prof. Nurayati, a close friend that I've known, had the opportunity to know for quite some time now. Yang Berusia Profesor Dr. Haim Hilman Abdullah, Vice Chancellor of Universiti Utara Malaysia. Yang Berusia Profesor Dr. Roslin Muhammad Yusof, Dean of Islamic Business School, Universiti Utara Malaysia. Yang Berusia Associate Professor Dr. Nur Azlina Abdul Wahab, Director of Institute Shariah Governance and Islamic Finance. Also the Director of our 4th UUM International Business Management Conference, IBMC 2022. To the other honorable keynote speakers and panelists, Yang Berusia Datuk Professor Dr. Akram Ladin, Executive Director of International Shariah Research Academy for Islamic Finance, ISRA, Research Management Center, also an adjunct professor of Islamic Business School, UUM, Professor Dr. Mabid Ali Muhammad Jarhim from Ankara Social Science University of Turkey, Professor Dr. Rozaini Hanifa from Heriot Ward University, United Kingdom, Professor Dr. Muhammad Hudayb from University of Prince Mugrin, Saudi Arabia, paper presenters and participants, the organizing committee of IBMC, distinguished guests, sponsors, conference partners, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning for those in Malaysia, and a good day to anyone else across the world joining us today for the IBMC 2022. First and foremost, I am very honored and would like to extend my deepest appreciation to the organizers, Universiti Utara Malaysia, for inviting me to talk today at the conference and share some thoughts on something that is very close to my heart. I think Prof. Yati had mentioned about the challenges that we have all faced as a country, globally, as respective countries and markets, and how it has impacted a lot of the lives of the people on the street, across regions and across income groups. And the theme of the conference this year, Islamic Business and COVID-19 Recovery, towards attaining financial and social well-being. I think it's something that's very apt to what we face today, and what we will discuss across the conference. Something that we probably, across the various functions, the various sectors of businesses, of Islamic businesses, be it financial or non-financial, could address as a group. Let me just confirm the slides are shared. Okay. But before we proceed, first and foremost, I think Prof. Yati has already given an introduction about myself, but I would also like to take this opportunity to also introduce FWD Takaful, right? And FWD Takaful is a family Takaful operator that started to make its entrance in Malaysia back in March 2019. After the acquisition of HSBC Amanah Takaful, right? It's a pan-Asian group based out of Hong Kong with a presence around 10 markets. Locally, we have the Employee Provident Fund as one of our shareholders and JAB Capital. That's not really what I wanted to talk about when it comes to FD Takaful. One of the things that I'm proud of being part of FD Takaful is this vision that FWD as a group and every Takaful in Malaysia embraces, which is changing the way people feel about Takaful. And what I'm proud, and I think Prof. Yati mentioned those words that I've mentioned, because it comes back to this vision, and it's just not words that we put or hang on the wall, right? A lot of times, vision gets lost in everyday business as we go focus on what we want to attain through all the other financial goals or shareholders' expectation or stakeholder expectations. But here in Everyday Takaful, we take this vision of changing the way people feel about Tako very seriously, where we look at how we want to make a topic or subject that is very dry, in a lot of markets very scary, Takaful or Islamic insurance, where people will run away from, right? We want to take something that is irrelevant to something that's very relevant in people's life. From Takaful being a complex subject to something that is very simple and straightforward, where people understand and no longer be worried about all the terms and words that's very alien to them, which would then create a lot of mistrust, because when people don't understand, then people start not trusting what we provide. So we want to create that trust. From something that's very boring and predictable to something that's inspiring, surprising, and passionate. From something that's very transactional and where people see of lack of empathy to something that is human and caring. And last but not least, from something that does not have a lot of engagement with people to something that is engaged. And why I started off explaining and sharing all this with all the attendees today, because it comes back to one thing that I'm proud of at Everyday Takaful, is that when we talk about this vision of changing the way people feel about Takaful, we really mean it for everyone across all the segments, the market segments, be income, who doesn't matter who you are, what gender you are, what race you are, or how you are born with. And we will talk about it as we go along this the discussion this morning I'll be sharing. Now I will jump into the topic, and my apologies, the topic that I was going to talk about today, and maybe I'll just go back a few slides and just share the topic back. It's about inclusive Takaful towards protecting financial and social well-being for everyone. And there are words in this topic itself that would then, in our discussion, following through the next, hopefully, I was given an hour and a half to see what it means. And the keywords in this topic itself is first inclusive Takaful, protecting the protection piece, financial and social well-being, which is the theme of the conference itself, and finally for everyone, which is just a word pun with the topic of inclusive. But before we go into and setting the tone, and then usually when I give my sharing, I like to set the context, right? First is to understand what financial well-being is, right? Because social well-being and financial well-being are very interconnected. And I found this sort of definition from this conceptually financial well-being and ecological life course. Financial well-being is when a person is able to first meet expenses and has control over money that is left over, and control of their finances, and feels financially secure now and in the future. And in my own words, or in how I interpret it, is basically financial well-being is our ability as individuals to feel safe that we are in control of money, of how we want to spend it, and how we manage it for today and tomorrow. And this is something that is very, very, very is expected, right? We all want this. But in a lot of conditions, especially with what has hit us back in 2019 when COVID hit us, where a lot of people across the world, even in Malaysia, and I'll share a bit more as we go along, was impacted and affected by the pandemic. While the health piece is something that is very obvious, but a lot more of us were not affected by COVID, but affected financially, right? In some ways or another. And that's something that we would need to look at. How do we then ensure we are able to absorb all the financial shocks when it comes to this, when such a situation happens again? So this particular slide talks about healthy financial well-being, more or less equals to healthy social well-being. And we will, and there's a lot of categorization of well-being, but I take the simple one of the 4 pillars of well-being, where you first internally you look at mentally and physically, right? That's us controlling ourselves as an individual, how we take care of our body, how we take care of our mental health, insurance, and a lot of times these two are very interrelated, right? A healthy body equals a healthy mind, right? And in Islam, if we look at a lot of the books and history, that's very prevalent. Externally is where social and a lot more financial, which a lot of us can argue falls internally as well, comes, right? Because social is really interaction with people, community, and whatnot. And it talks about our confidence in dealing with the world. And a lot of times when you're not financially healthy, and very, very simple behavioral way, we are not confident to interact with people. And that's again a fact, right? We as human beings, as normal human beings, when we look at someone who has a bigger house or a nicer car, we always think that, oh, that guy or that lady is much more successful and probably did something good, and be very confident. And we feel, if not a long-term feeling at that instance, we feel a bit inferior, right? So that is just a psychological human being and whatnot, right? And there's this model where we look at managing financial well-being, because financial well-being, there's again a lot of factors that affects it. The social and economic environment, right? The social is how people around us behave, expectations of people internally about family, how they grow up and stuff like that. And environment itself can be both the culture itself of a region and whatnot, or even situations that unexpected situations, like again the theme COVID-19, right? Post COVID-19, something that no one expected. Last was what? Spanish flu. I can't remember which is which, but it was something that I personally did not thought in my lifetime would live through, right? A pandemic. But how do you then ensure financial well-being? Because it has also the psychological factors, right? Attitude, motivations, and biases of a person. That's very individual. And also the knowledge, skills, and experiences we build, but knowledge and skills we can acquire, that would then affect our financial behaviors, the right financial behaviors, that would then determine how well we are financially, right? The better financial behaviors that we produce, how we save, how we spend, how we invest, then the better financial well-being we will be in. And all this needs to be equipped with the right knowledge and skills. And why I'm putting all this up front, because some of the other psychological factors, these are something that are very individual, right? That's something that that how we grow up, or how we are affected by our surroundings, then will shape us. Experiences itself is really a mixture of the psychological factors and the things that we learn. Because the more we learn and the more we teach people about the knowledge and skills, then the better outcome of financial behaviors that someone can produce. I'm highlighting this in, I think I'm going in like a broken record, mentioning this a few times, because this piece about knowledge and skills is very critical when we want to address the financial well-being of everyone. When we talk about the topic of inclusivity, because different categories of market segments or communities has different levels of knowledge and skills that needs to be addressed. Because again, the social and economic environment probably have affected all these circumstances or conditions they are in when it comes to knowledge and skills, especially about financials. Now, there was a survey, Financial Capability and Inclusivity Survey 2021, done by Bank Negara Malaysia. You feel free to Google it up and download, which I use it a lot in the presentation. And one of the snapshots of the finding that was produced from the report, the finding of the report, was because it was done during post-pandemic, right? Just right after post-pandemic. Financial challenges from the pandemic have had a positive influence on longer-term financial planning behavior, with more Malaysians now placing more importance on retirement planning and personal financial risk management. When COVID-19 hit, right, the unexpected health risk was something that you know came right to the face, and everybody was worried and scared. Initially, we did not thought that it would go on a very long journey, right? We were hoping that the lockdown would open in most countries very soon, and things would go back to normal. But reality was when that happened, a lot of us were constrained to how we work and how we earn money. For someone like me, very fortunate to be a private sector employee working at Takaful, had the opportunity to continue to work at home and still earn money. A lot of businesses, small businesses, especially from various communities, right? We higher income, lower income, were impacted. They could not open up shops, right? To sell out their produce, and was impacted financially. This was the reality. But the good thing is that as we go along that, even for Takaful itself, and I will talk a bit more on that, people realize the importance of financial protection and financial management in general. They felt the pain of suddenly being constrained when it comes to first earning and also spending money. This was a snapshot of another report that was produced. One of my favorite when it comes to looking at inclusivity. I always go back to reports produced by the Kazana Research Institute. They produce quite decent report and very insightful reports talking about effects of all segments of people, right? A report was produced by them in August 2022, looking at the effect of COVID-19 pandemic by employment status, and giving and when I was mentioning just now about the effect of people, and if you look at the graph on this a lot of the people who are self-employed were impacted, right? Only about 28% to about 29% had savings to last more than a month when due to pandemic. Less than a month, 71.4%, right? Who lost jobs, self-employed, 46.6%. And experiencing drop in income, 94.8%, right? Self-employed. Again, the effect of not being able to do business, not being able to do what services they provide and earn income. Even for the ones that's working, right, had an impact because a lot of them, to a certain extent, had experienced some drop in income. And if you look at private employees itself, 41.1%, right? And in 2022 as well, the Financial Education Network, which is a co-chaired group looking at financial literacy, co-chaired by Bank Negara Malaysia, the Central Bank of Malaysia, and Securities Commission of Malaysia, together with Ringgit Plus did a survey, and you can see from the slide there's a lot of findings there. But what more is important is that to see that 50% had savings less than 1,000, right? 29% only 29% realized the importance of emergency fund. Right? During COVID, some awareness was created along these lines, looking at how a lot of people were affected by financial shocks. And again, looking at Malaysia again, and more recently, because the earlier report that I was sharing was looking at 2020, right? The survey was looking at data through early of the COVID, the year 2020 where COVID first hit. Then we had another survey from the FCI that was mentioned, that was produced by, that was captured in the Financial Sector Blueprint 2022-2026. It looks at Malaysia again, right? The good thing about Malaysia is that there are our financial behaviors, financial knowledge, and financial attitude. It's not that bad. It's quite healthy, to be honest, compared to the other countries in OECD. Some of it are even higher than average, right? Financial behavior 68.1. Financial knowledge, we still have a long way to go. We still need to educate a lot of people. I think that's where inclusivity comes in. And financial score, again, 59.2. And we look at the financial capacity gaps, right? There's still a lot of things that we need to think about. 34% still do not have long-term savings plan. 48% do not know the concept of risk diversification, right? Everything's they bet everything one thing, and if anything happens, they probably have a nightmare of financial nightmare. And 54% have financial buffers of less than 3 months if they lost their income. And again, the financial capability and inclusion demand side survey 2021, household income affected during pandemic, about 55% decrease, right? But they were about 3% increase. Very lucky for them. I wasn't one of them, so 42% income unchanged. But they were also, and the financial FCI, the Financial Capability and Inclusion Demand Side Survey, was conducted late, based on Q3 2021, if I'm not mistaken, data. And there were some improvements, right? In the event of lost income, Malaysians are able to sustain their living expenses between 3 to 6 months. It increased from 24% to 36%. more than 6 months, increased from 10% to 60%. And this comes back to the earlier sharing of that snapshot or the finding from the report, right? Saying that now Malaysians are more aware of the need for financial management post-COVID. Generally, Malaysians are having that awareness about financial management. But the sad thing about it, as a believer in financial protection or Takaful, building a comfortable financial safety net, is that despite this greater awareness of insurance and Takaful observed during the pandemic, interest in learning about it is still low. Only 1 out of 3 respondents remains low, where 1 out of 3 respondents indicated no interest in learning about the importance of Takaful. For those, and again, you probably could Google this, the financial planning pyramid. In the typical one has the 3 segments, right? Below is protection of the pyramid, at the bottom, savings and investment. And it's a pyramid, right? Investment is the smallest triangle up there. Savings, quite substantial and base, right? But protection has at the bottom, saying that that's the base and has the biggest allocation of size in the pyramid. What it means is not you don't need to spend so much on protection, but you need to build that protection financial safety net, because if anything happens, that amount of money needs to be able to be there to ensure that if not you, your loved ones can continue to be financially healthy. Because again, financial shocks, and COVID-19 has taught us that, right? People got sick, lost lives in just unexpected, right? Healthy people got really sick and passed away just like that, and left their loved ones just in the moment, right? But they go, the loved ones are there, the financial burdens are there, life needs to move on. And without that financial protection, then it's very, very difficult for people to move on and continue to live healthily. So that's something that caught me caught my attention from the survey, because in terms of the industry itself, we saw an increase of take-up in Takaful insurance. But post-pandemic, now, today, we've seen a drop. And we'll probably discuss about it a bit more as we go along. This is a classic chart when we talk about the penetration of Takaful in Malaysia. Right? I joined the Takaful industry after spending 3 years in the non-halal version of it in 2006. Had the opportunity and to be part of the setting up of the leading Takaful operator in Malaysia, family Takaful operator in Malaysia right now. And back then, in 2006, the penetration rate is not even in the slide, right? Was only 6%. It was single digit, and it was always been single digit until I think about back in 2010 or 2009 started double digit, and now today 2021 we are happy to see it up to 19%, right? 18.6% latest out of last year. But again, compared to the conventional one, which is at 41%, there's still a lot more to go. If you look at Takaful being a solution, a Shariah compliant solutions for Muslims, Malaysia itself has about 57% plus minus approximately Muslims population, and 19% is really far off, and there's still a lot more to go to be covered. What 90% means is that out of 10 people in Malaysia, 8 Malaysians who actually experience financial troubles or struggles, if anything unexpected happens to them, be it health, accident, or anything, right? What is more worrying is that only 4% households from the lower income segment has some form of family Takaful life insurance coverage. And these are the segment, the people who face the most difficulties if anything happens to them, right? Again, setting the context, where Malaysians dealing with unexpected events. Again, a lot of improvement compared to where we were in 2015 from the FCI survey, 76 to 47 now, Malaysian, 47% of Malaysians now have difficulty to raise 1,000 ringgit as emergency funds if anything happens to them. And below, 36% already know about it. But again, the point that I was mentioning, 35% of Malaysians is not interested to learn about Takaful or emergency funds, right? 60% difficult to raise emergency fund, B40 income groups, and views insurance and Takaful protection as a luxury. Question is this fact or myth or a stigma, right? And we discuss this as we go along. Another quite recent report was produced by Perbadanan Insurance Deposit Malaysia, PIDM, the Malaysian Insurance Deposit of Malaysia, Corporation of Malaysia. They engaged the behavioral insights team, which I believe works out of UK, on a survey. Why don't urban millionaires insure? Encouraging Malaysian financial resilience. And there are three main findings that they found and they summarize. One is that they saw that people with lower income groups has higher present bias and lower insurance uptake. So that's something that a lot of us talk about and they just confirm, right? They have both structural and behavioral barriers to getting insurance, Takaful for that matter, right? The second was just highlighting that we need to find the right time and how to cleverly nudge people to take up insurance coverage. But the third one is also another key finding. People struggle with decisions around insurance and do not think there is enough good guidance out there to tell them how to take up insurance, right? Because this is also, again, another important point. And coming back to the earlier point that I was making when I shared the slide about financial well-being, where knowledge and skills play a very important role in improving people's financial well-being. And one of the most important components of financial well-being is protecting that financial health itself. And that's where Takaful comes into play. Now, I'll jump a bit into what inclusive Takaful means, right? And usually when we talk about inclusive Takaful, the first segment that comes to mind is the more unfortunate lower income segment, or if I may say, which I personally don't want to use that because it's just some labels, right? Because in Islamic finance itself, or in Islamic businesses, or that's the core spirit of Islamic finance, when you look at the system of zakat, it's about wealth distribution. Fair wealth distribution, not equal, right? Fair wealth distribution. And I want to take all of us to reflect on this beautiful ayah from Surah Al-Isra verse 26 and give the relative his right, and also the poor and the traveler, and do not spend wastefully. And when you talk about financial literacy and Islamic financial literacy, I think this is beautiful and give that and set the tone about how we should look at Islamic finance itself. So, looking at understanding inclusive battle, first you have to understand some context about the B40 community or the lower income community. This is again another report produced by Khazanah Research Institute, KRI, back in October and December 2020. Two different reports. First is a report on welfare across Malaysia 3 decades. Good thing is that few households are now in absolute poverty, but relative poverty persists. Financial protection is critical to ensure they don't fall back further into cycle of poverty and whatnot, right? That's one. So this is just saying that while few households are absolute poverty, this issue is still there. And it's important when the improvements, we see the improvements is where we ensure and build that protection for them and give them that solution to protect whatever improvements they've achieved. The next slide, the next graph below talks about shorter life expectancy in states with lower incomes. Because this talks about how poor health outcomes in the lower community is more prevalent. And it makes sense, right? And that's where we come back to social well-being, health well-being and whatnot, and financial well-being. When you don't earn enough, when you don't earn enough money, how do you then take care of your health? Right? How do you ensure that you are able to be living better, right? So that's because your financial priorities are now spread across different priorities. Just give me a moment. There's some technical issues of me changing the slide. Okay. Now, going back to another report produced by someone I know, Chiu Hui Lin, who used to work with the Insurance Development Department of Bank Negara Malaysia back in 2018, March. She produced a report. Now she's with Access to Insurance, based out of Germany, where it looks at how the low income, or in Malaysia we define as B40, life insurance uptakes. In Malaysia itself, about 7.8 million were unprotected and uninsured back in 2018 when this report was produced. And about half of them, 3.9 million, are from the B40 segment. And you look at the graph, the line graph on the other, on this side of the slide, it just shows that across all states, it's consistently lower penetration rate for insurance for the B40 compared to the high income. Right? And this, again, still persists up to today, although the report is a bit dated back in 2018. This is a more recent report produced by Milliman for the Life Insurance Association Malaysia Takaful Association back in May 2022. And this report looks at understanding the upper half of the B40 segment and the lower half of the M40, the middle 40. Right? Because when COVID hit, and coming back to the theme of the conference, it was not only the lower income that was impacted that we thought about. A lot more in the middle income And at that point of time, we heard about terms of B50 and you know, all these terms, because the middle income was impacted quite a bit about with COVID financially. And when we look at, and the report looks at how, what they view as risk in life and how they cope with all these financial shocks that might come into their lives, their everyday lives. Top risk, the lighter orange is the lower, the higher income, or the low 20s, 20% of the M40s, and the darker orange is the higher of the B40, right? For the more high income, they look at illness and hospitalization as something that key priority to them. But for the lower one, their life importance are very clear, right? About losing their job or unable to pay back loans. And when you talk about how they cope mechanism, you can see that insurance is something that the high income has, uses to cope, and talks about more about what do you call that, of them having some form of protection, while the higher of the B40 group still goes back to government assistance or utilizes any assets that they have to come up with financial assistance, right? Selling off or pawning any gold that they may have or any valuables that they may have. And finally, seeking additional work. What does this finding tell us? Is really, instead of going through all these coping mechanisms, because the theme again is about financial and social well-being. Imagine being an individual coping with COVID-19 already, with all the uncertainties of life, right? Your kid, for those with family, children, stuck in the house, already handling that pressure and whatnot, and having that worry to have to seek additional work if anything happens, or selling something valuable that you feel so hard to let go. But instead, there is actually a financial solution, a Shariah compliant financial solution that actually could help you with this, which is Takaful. Now, I'll jump into inclusivity, financial inclusion, before we talk even about inclusive Takaful. What does that mean? In Malaysia, financial inclusion is not something new. It's something that was defined back in 2011 when the financial sector blueprint 2011 to 2020 was produced. And I must give it to our central bank. We have a very dynamic, or what's the right word to use? Their hearts at the right place, right? In short, that they came out with this, the financial sector blueprint, and we will look at that. But first, it defines this financial inclusion vision. An inclusive financial system that best serves all members of society, including the underserved, one keyword, to have access to and usage of quality, affordable, essential financial services to satisfy their needs towards shared prosperity. And I always love the word shared prosperity, because that's something, to me, is very close to Islamic finance. It's close to fair distribution of wealth. Because in Islamic businesses or Islamic finance, generating wealth is never wrong, right? You do need to generate wealth. We need to be financially healthy as an individual, as a country, to be able to serve the people around us, the community around us, or for Muslims, especially our family, right? So I applaud the vision and I truly believe in it. And if we look into the financial inclusion framework itself, it's a very structured and systemic approach of trying to address financial inclusion in Malaysia, including Takaful. And we've talked about the vision, and then they set 4 desired outcomes. First, convenience and accessibility, so that people can actually access. With that objective or that aspiration for people to take it up, for responsible usage, right? And this is also a very key word, especially to financial service providers. We don't want to produce financial products or services that doesn't really serve the purpose of the need of the market, the underserved market, especially the vulnerable and the very sensitive underserved markets, to get them into more trouble, for instance, and also high satisfaction. And to achieve that, they've also identified 4 broad strategies. First, trying to address it through innovative channels. Second, talks about the products and services itself, innovative products and services. Building institutions that are effective with the right infrastructure, effective financial institution infrastructure. And last, building that well-informed and responsible underserved market itself. So they have these 4 broad strategies. And under innovative channels, again, and I give it to the Central Bank of Malaysia, Bank Negara Malaysia, because probably they were very forward-looking. Because point number 2 on the 10 action, they had 10 action plans to achieve the mandate of financial inclusion. Number 2 was to leverage on technology-based innovative channels. And COVID-19 itself, coming back to the theme, I don't want to run away from the theme point too much. I'm putting this across because when COVID-19 hit, when we could not move freely like we used to, when paper money meant lesser to us than the money in our bank account digitally. The digital literacy need across all market segments, regardless where you are in income bracket, where you are geographically, your age did not matter. Even the old had to adapt to digital literacy, right? Which in a way helps with the bigger objective of financial inclusion. And on the tech action plans, action plan number 5 specifically mentions about introducing microinsurance and Takaful products. In this whole framework itself, I think one of my favorite is still as well is number 9 and 10. When we talk about well-informed and responsible underserved. Again, a broken record that I am. Coming back to the knowledge and skills, the importance of from the PIDM survey telling us that there's the need, people out there don't have enough good guidance and stuff like that. It's important to improve financial literacy, to improve how they view money, to improve how they will manage it, not for only today but for tomorrow. And it's most important for segments that are denied to financial services before and now started to have access but need to be able to make the right decisions and be responsible in those decisions that they make financially, because that will then determine their financial health and social well-being. Now, again, another beautiful verse of the Quran, Surah Al-Ma'idah verse 2. And this is actually the basis of the Takaful system. And cooperate in righteousness and pity, but do not cooperate in sin and aggression. The Takaful itself is based on the concept of ta'awun, mutual assistance, based on tabaruk, the contract of donation to help one another, right? And this surah doesn't mention that you need to cooperate for certain group of people. And we go back to the last sermon by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned that, you know, Islam is for everyone, not for the Arabs. It's for all colors, for all humanity. And again, when we want to help people, it's inclusive for everyone, regardless who you are and how you're born with. And then I'm purposely mentioning this particular word as we go along. And when you talk about inclusivity, and inclusive takaful in particular, it's really about addressing the protection gap or the financial protection gap, which is very important for the financial well-being of an individual for two communities that come first, the underserved community, which are community that currently has limited access to appropriate takaful products. There might be products out there now, a bit more than before, with some initiatives that I will share that's been implemented in Malaysia. But still, a long way to go, right? Before we have problems with affordability and some of the challenges that we'll talk about as we go along. And another community which we call unserved. Communities that currently does not even have any access to takaful products, to availability of any suitable products. Why? Not because the need of those products they don't need. It's because of the circumstances they are in. And most of the time, uncontrollable by them. Some of it, they just are born as such. So how do you address this then is producing as for financial institution like us, like FDU Takaful, of a Takaful operator like FDU Takaful produces inclusive Takaful products, meaningful and affordable, Shariah compliant Takaful product that suit the needs of these two communities. But then, is it enough when we have the inclusive Takaful products for the underserved and unserved community? And the context that I've said earlier, findings from reports, many reports that were produced, not only one, shows that without the right knowledge or nudge or awareness on all this, the importance of this, it could not happen. And that's why the third item, financial literacy, is very important to be channeled out and taught to the group, right? And the awareness on Takaful map to the right products with the right tools and knowledge and skills. Because while all these circles are big, the point of financial inclusion is actually when all of these three circles meet. And even now, and as this Venn diagram shows, the point of financial inclusion is not that big right now, but it's at least something. And it's a point to start. It's a point to where we need to ensure that everyone builds the right financial safety net to ensure their financial well-being. I'm very proud to talk today at the IBMC conference 2020, IBMC 2022, the Islamic Business Management Conference 2022, organized by Universiti Utara Malaysia, particularly the Islamic Business School, because first research that was produced on inclusive takaful for every takaful, we did it with UUM. Research called the Suitable Takaful Plan and Distribution Channel for B40, for the lower income segment. Because when we talk about inclusivity, or when we talk about addressing this cause or agenda, or producing the right products for them, first we need to understand. And we always think we understand. And that's one of the biggest mistakes a lot of financial institutions does not takaful make. Because we produce products that we think is right for the segment we want to serve, but not necessarily addressing what they need. Steve Jobs once mentioned, right? People don't know what they need. We need to create that need. But first, before creating that need, you still need to understand the people that you are going to serve. So I'm very happy when we produce this report, and it's one of the most proud report that I do share with a lot of people, because this report really validates the design of our first micro Takaful product, Abdul Kasih, produced by that was launched by Abdul Takaful back in 2020, sorry, back in 2020, September 2020. I had the opportunity to start the relationship to my good friend Prof. Asmadi, Prof. Dr. Asmadi Maknayum, who's now the Vice Chancellor of Unisham on loan there. Still very proud a member of IBS, IUM, and met a lot of people, very beautiful people who believes in the cause. Prof. Dr. Salama, Raini, my good friend Dr. Yazid, Dr. Fikri, Dr. Wahida, and Sharon Nizam. Also from we had representative from Muslim as well. And the report shows, right? First, very importantly, about close to 70% does not have any Takaful protection. They interviewed about 1,002 surveys with 300 the interviews, right? FGDs, focus group discussions across Malaysia. But while 70%, close to 70% does not have protection, 58.7% express interest for protection. The point is, regardless where you are in a low income bracket, we know that it's important to have or build a financial safety net or have a Takaful coverage or Takaful protection. But again, the issue of affordability, and 65.9% said they're willing to pay 50 ringgit for some sort of protection, with 56.8%, and this is also very critical from the report, and usually we don't see it now, right? Looking at coverage of at least 20,000. Of course, when we produce reports, we produce products before, we always had this mindset that, you know, we need to give at least 100,000 coverage for someone. If not, they could not cover. But again, from the report, certain segments just want enough to cover what they need to cover, and 20,000 for them was enough. And 20,000 means lesser contribution that needs to be paid, right? To give valuable financial protection. From the report, you'll find some they did the FGDs, right? The focus group discussions. Words about sharing from the people they interviewed, just saying that, you know, I know that if I pay little, I get little, but that's all I need. And translating it, not word to word, but more or less that, right? I think that's also an important point to point out. And if you look at again on the table across different occupations, more or less is still around that same coverage size and same amount that they're willing to pay. And we produced the first micro Takaful product, which I will share as a case study later, which only costs about 2 ringgit a month for a 10,000 cover for female, 2 ringgit 50 for male, between the ages of 19 to 40. Right? That itself is something that I'm proud of, and we'll share some results as we go along. Sorry, there's some technical issues of changing the slide. Okay. Then one of the things I'm also very happy, given the opportunity of Takaful, that's why probably I love Takaful quite a lot, is this opportunity to understand a lot more about the markets you want to serve, and collaborate a lot with a high learning institution. Another research we did was with Universiti Sultan Zainal Abidin, UNIZA, based out of Terengganu, on understanding the rural market. First, we understood the general B40. Now we understand the rural market a bit more, because that's where a lot of the low income are, quote and unquote, and where we struggle a lot more to reach out. The findings are not too different, right? 66% are still not ready. Earlier we had about close to 69% does not have any protection. here we found that 66% are still not ready for some form of to participate in Takaful. Average of 100 ringgit, not too far, very quite, you know, similar to the report that was produced by UUM. 77.5 wants plan more than one coverages, prefer a bit more agency. 5 and 6, 5, again, from all the respondents and all these findings, 67% come from B40, and just then validates the findings of the report from the UUM report earlier, right? And when we talk about inclusivity, and I think earlier I mentioned about it doesn't matter how you're born with. We also did a research collaboration with Universiti Malaya to understand the disabled segment. And in the Venn diagram that I showed earlier and showed unserved community, and this is probably one of the most unserved community with financial products in general, and Takaful in particular, right? And a lot of them were born with this, born this way, never asked for it. But because they were born in this and the circumstances they are born with, they are denied financial protection. I think that's something that we as in industry collectively need to do a bit more. I'm very passionate about this as well because I do have only one son with learning disability and who is on the autism spectrum, right? And I personally, also being in this industry, felt the challenges, faced the challenges of obtaining secured coverages, Takaful coverages for my own son, and I've been trying to champion this for many years. And Alhamdulillah, in FW Takaful, thus far, with my beautiful family members from FW Takaful, the product team especially, Shariah and her team, and also the IT team because it's an online product. I've produced 2 products for learning disabilities, at least something to start with, for the autism and stuff. And I will share a bit more later as we go along. And there's also, very recently, another Takaful operator, I know the CEO quite well, Zafri, who launched a Takaful plan for the disabled segment by Etika Takaful. There's still a lot that needs to be done around this because, again, financial protection, COVID-19 itself, if you look at, if you read up, you don't even have to look at researchers and whatnot, you just read up and Google the newspaper, news, you see how the disabled segment was impacted financially by COVID-19 and still struggle to build their financial well-being and social well-being post-pandemic. Unserved segments also looks at high-risk segment. People sometimes it's our own fault for not taking care of our physical or mental health. Physical health primarily falls under this, or some of them born again innocently into such situation. And if I give that example, for instance, people with HIV. Many years back, when HIV first came up, I think it's a taboo subject or taboo disease, and we always look at it negatively because it's always associated with negative behaviors, right? The outcomes of negative behaviors. But generation, as we go across generation, some of them are, you know, a lot of the HIV who are infected by HIV, some of them are just born with it due to mistakes done by other people, right? Or some innocently just got it through blood transfusion. So that's one example of unserved segment. But another unserved segment that we had the opportunity to do a research collaboration with Universiti Science Islam Malaysia, USIM. Thanks to now he's working with the Securities Commission. And back then, Dr. Azrul Azlan Iskandar Mirza was one of the Shariah committee with FD Takaful, help us do this research about developing a suitable Takaful product for people with disabilities. For people with diabetes, right? And when we did that research, 61% voted interested, right? Willing to pay 50 ringgit. And you see number 2, already you see that the amount that they're willing to give out is at 50 ringgit. 80 and it relates to point number 5, and we'll talk about it a bit more. Really want to pay out for the medicines, decision on obtaining Takaful really made by themselves. Interest by demographics. Highest percentage who wants Takaful for diabetes comes from the B40 group. Because on number 6, B40 is a majority of the people from the survey itself, and statistically in Malaysia, suffering from diabetes, about 40%. Relates back to the results of the report that was produced by Khazanah Research Institute about poor health incomes for lower income groups. And the most prevalent illness is diabetes. We've run at FDF Takaful a few financial literacy programs during COVID-19 itself for adults from the B40 segment. We did it online with an NGO called Abdul Rahman bin Auf Foundation, ARBA. Right? They itself a very good NGO that wants to empower the lower income segment with the right decision-making decisions in life. They give 400 and monitor how they spend 400 ringgit monthly. If they don't meet the requirements, they stop and whatnot. But they were very happy to allow us to access to the community that they were helping, and we did. My colleague Wan Intan went on to share on the importance of Takaful to this community online across all ages. It was very beautiful sight to watch, right? Struggling to find ways to understand how, again, digital literacy, right? First time on Zoom and stuff like that. And by the end of the financial literacy sharing did by my colleague Wan Intan, using her own personal experiences growing up, almost 90%, if not all, wanted to take up. But a lot could not have taken it up because of some of the situation, health conditions they are in. And that is something that's sad, because they've already raised the awareness of wanting to protect their financial health, but again, now unable to do so. I'm not saying that we should cover everyone, but there needs to be a lot more effort to see how many more we can cover. And I just came back from actually I just came back last night at 2 a.m. from Bangkok for a summit, a strategy summit by FWD Group. And there was a sharing from on the head of digital banking, chief digital officer of the biggest bank in Thailand, which is the bank partner of FWD in Thailand, SCB Bank, Siam Commercial Bank, if I'm not mistaken. They're very big. He was sharing that, you know, one of the ways that they have innovated the way they offer digital financial banking products is to first take this approach, or at least try to take this approach of just offering financial loans out to everyone, but then determine how much you want to give, right? Give that chance to prove, because they don't have good any experiences from the low income, that they are good creditors, and increase their loan amount as they go along. I thought that was pretty awesome, because similarly to this, you know, we want to give because a lot of times they really do need it and they would not want to abuse it, but we are so worried about the moral hazard about abusing some Takaful protection that we deny full access to such products from the start. This just shows a summary of the inclusive Takaful product models in Malaysia. There's two in short. One is free, one is self-paid. Free, a lot more times is targeted for the bottom 40, where self-paid is more for everyone from the underserved and unserved segments, right? Free again, there's two models. One is fully paid by the government. Examples in Malaysia are like My Salam, Perker 40 and Perker 40. My Salam itself has a mechanism where the risk fund or the tabaruk fund that they set up to serve and pay out the claims from My Salam had a large additional capital support, right? That's one way of doing it. Another way was free again, but paid by a CSR initiative. One of the Takaful operators has been doing this, Prudential Bank and Takaful, been doing this for many years and very successfully, giving out free coverages for the lower B40. And it allows their customers to also participate in it through riders that can be attached to their existing products and contribute to this fund and to provide free coverages. And a lot more other operators have also embarked on this model, and I'm also very interested to. I personally also want to have the opportunity to empower our customers to also help with our own cause of wanting to serve the underserved and unserved. Everybody wants to do good, right? And again, coming back to the fundamentals, Islamic finance, fair distribution of wealth, everybody playing a role in it. The self-paid one, which is a bit more of what I personally favor, because I believe in teaching how people to fish, teaching people how to fish instead of giving free fish. Is first paid by the individual who takes up. Example, products that we have every kasih, very affordable, so people just can take it up, right? But again, when I say very affordable, to still people might not be enough yet, right? So another model that I hope to be able to, we hope at FWTech will be able to produce is a subsidy model, right? And there are in this model itself where the tabaruk fund also receives some appropriate risk fund seeded with additional capital support. Just mindful of time, I have another 15 minutes. So this is a summary of some of the challenges that we face as Takaful operators in introducing inclusive Takaful products. And there are a lot of challenges, right? Internally, mindset and whatnot. But in general, there are 4 challenges that we've managed to summarize. First and foremost, even from the surveys, the reports that we'll produce, is really cost and price point. Again, even in the financial inclusion vision produced by Negara, it talks about affordability, right? Affordability to the intended market segment. What really means affordable to them, not to us, not to anybody who produces the product. It's really what they can afford. But it's also important when we address affordability, we need to develop a marketable product that is low enough cost, but ensuring that there's enough profits from the design of products financially for the Takaful operator who offers the product to sustain it, because we don't want to put a loss-making product and at the end of the day, a few years down the road, the Takaful operator brings down the product from the shelf. It's also very important to understand and acknowledge that Takaful operators or Islamic finance institutions are not charitable organizations. We are a business entity. While we try our best to help and serve, we are a business entity that needs to generate profit to pay salaries of me and a lot of my friends and shareholders and a lot of things, right? But at the same time, it's our responsibility, operators, to also find innovative ways to ensure that, again, coming back to the basic fundamentals of Islamic finance, fair distribution of wealth. Next is developing the right product, the product design. It needs to be a lot of times, it's also a challenge to develop attractive enough designs to capture the interest of the underserved and unserved segment while keeping it simple and light. Imagine someone who had been denied access or had limited access to Takaful products or financial products before this, suddenly coming up to them and giving them investment link product with returns of this much, that much, this complex concepts, explaining to them. It needs to be simple enough to address that. Coming back to one of the research that I was sharing, for instance, address their worries of losing a job or getting into an accident, like what is needed. But doing that in a very attractive way, that's, again, that itself is a challenge. Then you have attractive products and probably affordable enough. It goes back to distribution channel. How do we actually get product out there? And distribution channel usually has a problem with cost and price point, because the biggest cost when it comes to producing or getting a Takaful product out is actually distribution. Because for instance, we take the traditional agency, a lot of the cost that needs to be given out is the commission to the agent, which is fair to them because they actually did a lot of effort to actually convince people to take it up. Or to their end, it was not easy to convince people to take up something that's already important for them in the first place, right? How you then we balance this out. And another issue when we do talk about distribution so is other operational costs, right? Printing forms for a micro Takaful product, right? Imagine printing 10,000 forms, a ringgit each. That's 10,000 ringgit. And at the end of the day, only receiving back applications of about maybe 500. Right? 10,000 ringgit minus 500 is how much? 9,500 loss of course, just like that. And that's why a lot of times we have to move digitally. But before this and before COVID-19, this question always comes out a bit more prevalent, right? How do you get a product? This is a product to the lower income segment. How do you teach a farmer on a paddy field or a fisherman just coming back from the sea to take up a product from digitally, right? But now after digital literacy has increased, that's at least something that is easier to address. But again, it's still something that needs to be addressed, right? For distribution, for our product is digital because we needed to cut costs to give the right value back to the customer. But just putting it online would not work. So we had to work with a lot of partners to get the products out. And then I share as we go into the case study. What about we share now, right? For instance, in partnership for our advocacy, we worked with Food Panda, one of the gig workers, to promote products to their riders. And the first claim from advocacy actually came from one of the riders who passed away due to accident with a wife who was pregnant about 6 months at that point of time, right? And luckily he took up the highest cover of advocacy, about 40,000 ringgit. And it meant a lot when we actually paid that clean out to the wife who was, by the time we paid, almost giving birth. Imagine a wife losing a loved one and expecting a new loved one that was to be shared. Now only will be bringing up alone without the person you love, who was being the breadwinner. Losing someone is something that you can't avoid. Death is inevitable. coping with that is already a challenge. But imagine coping with that with financial burden. Last is challenges is actually once you are able to get the product out, people started taking up affordable, but is actually ensuring the underserved and served segment who took up the product continues to pay and ensure that they have continuous protection. That itself is a challenge because in a lot of things, Takaful or insurance for that matter, if the foreign commissioner, is always the first thing that you drop if anything happens to you, right? When you have financial difficulties. Well, it is most important. So it's important to build a disciplined yet practical infrastructure to ensure that people continue to pay. It's not really first, it's for, as operators, we want to ensure that we are able to cover the cost to continue to have the product on the shelf. But more importantly, for the people that we serve, to continue to have that protection, because you don't know when misfortune can happen. Emergency happens anytime, right? And a lot of times it's when you least expect it. Again, a case study of Aplikasi. We came out with the product Aplikasi back in 2022. A lot of it with the help of findings from the report of by UUM. On the onset was for the lower income, affordable again, 90 to 35, just RM2 a month. Grassroots approach. Malaysia, in Malaysia, majority of the lower income segments comes from the Malay language, Malay community who uses Malay language. So all our materials are in Malay, accessible online, which means you can pick it up anywhere, anytime. Distribution channel again, we put it on the e-commerce platform, our existing site, but had a lot of help from our partners, and we'll share a bit more as we go along. Eligibility in Malaysia B40 is defined as 4,800 unless it's changed household income. But we made a conscious decision to allow anybody with individual income of 5,000 to take it up, right? And this again prevalent to the impact of COVID-19 against the M40 and B40 groups, right? And then we hope that this has helped with addressing that. One of the things that we also are happy and proud to do was the financial literacy efforts we did with by starting young for the youth. And we did this with collaboration with a lot of universities. And again, one of them is UUM. Universiti Malaya was another very strong supporter. We did with Unisham, Universiti Sultan Abdul Halim Muazzam Shah, and Universiti Sultan Azhar Shah. What we did was we built a safe environment for students to experiment, promoting and sharing about the importance of Takaful especially for the B40 segment, even among friends, and get them to take it up, so that people understand, they themselves understand what it means on the importance of financial protection, and independently getting this message across to the people we want to serve. And Alhamdulillah, across the many years that we've done, we managed, now these are numbers that talks about enforced certificates across 2020, these 2 years, 2022 mid-year and stuff like that. We had around 981 cases still enforced, and a big chunk of it came from the projects we did with UM. And this is again an example of one of the partners we worked with. UUN, for instance, is a university up north, accessible to communities around Kedah and Perlis. My late father was from Kedah. My nanny is still in Perlis. So get to interact with the communities there. A lot of them are from the more low income segment. So that itself got us to be able to bring a digital product down to even places or villages around Kedah and Perlis. So that's an example. One of the other things that the government had done in Malaysia is Perlindungan Tenang, a guided and concerted effort of producing lower products that addresses the lower income segment. On the slide itself, we can see all the operators in Malaysia. Almost, I think it's almost all, about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of 11 operators offer Perlindungan Tenang that covers that provides products for the low income segment. They have 4 characteristics: affordable, accessible, simple, and easy to buy and claim. And it was then further, there was a nudge by the government to give, to help subsidize take up of these products through the Perlindungan Tenang voucher program. Firstly, they announced 50 ringgit, then 75 ringgit, where anybody who falls under the B40 segment validated by the government's database can claim this, redeem this voucher and take up any Perlindungan Tenang products. And that's why you've seen in the earlier slide, but when the market penetration increased in 2021 to 18.6, there was about a lot of push from this as well. And then it was timely because of COVID-19. A lot of people was, and a lot of the low income segment was impacted. So it was a good move personally. But more importantly now is how we ensure after the first subsidy, the first nudge for people to take up is to ensure they continue to pay, because it will not be a sustainable model to continue to subsidize Takaful coverages for everyone. Another initiative that was recently introduced is EPF Lindung, which allows people to take up Takaful products, very affordable ones as well. 2 types, term Takaful and critical illness. Term just provides the disability and total permanent disability covers in case anything happens, and critical illness covers critical illness through the EPF Lindung digital platform, where you can do withdrawals, check your balances in the EPF account, and do not have the beauty of it. You do not have to take out money from your monthly expenses, right? You can use a portion of your retirement fund from account to actually provide cover for today. So we've seen a lot of early successes itself. It was launched in July this year, 2022, and a lot of Malaysians has taken up. Another example, I've mentioned that I'm very fortunate in every Takaful to be able to launch 2 products for the disabled segment, which is also again close to my heart. A Special Care Direct product for the learning disability, which cover both parents and the child. Every Special Med is a online medical plan for people with learning. There's about 7 learning disability, and hopefully very soon we'll be able to launch a cover and extend this Special Med cover for people with Down syndrome, probably by early next year. And I know I'm overshoot of time, but let me just briefly cover this. When we talk about inclusivity, when we talk about innovating into the areas of inclusive Takaful, we do need to embrace new horizons and be innovative. And we are very fortunate again in Malaysia to have very forward-looking, very innovative and very passionate group of people, both from regulator and Shariah fraternity, where quite recently Bank Negara issued a discussion paper on the broader application of ta'awun in Takaful. Ta'awun is again the basic concept of mutual assistance. In summary, this discussion paper talks about allowing surpluses, which in Malaysia could be shared between the Takaful operator and the participant, to use those surpluses for better good or greater good, right? And primarily along the lines of helping to serve the underserved, helping communities to have a better Takaful coverage because they can't afford, right? And if you look at the Venn diagram, the current one talks about the current contract covers and help each or all the people in the contract. Now it's really to enhance it to broader socio-economic resilience and meeting the needs of underserved and as well as unserved segments. And a graphic representation, and then I do encourage for those who have not read the paper, broader application on Takaful, a tahun on Takaful, do have a read. If you want to learn a bit more, I think the recording of a panel discussion, which myself, Cik Khalid, the appointed actuary of Great Eastern Takaful, and Professor Dr. Azman from UIA discuss about the paper itself. Graphic representation, this is how the current Takaful contract works. It covers people who agrees to help another, and surplus goes back to them and the operator. It's just now extending and building a new tabaruk, a new Takaful fund to then help the unserved and underserved. Very simple, but beautiful concept of applying a broader application of Takaful just by leveraging on the surplus, which by the way is a lot of money, especially in family Takaful. So now comes to the end of my sharing for today, but my apologies again for taking up a bit more additional time. And going back to this beautiful framework of the Malaysian Financial Inclusion Framework, now trying to find when we talk about building a financial and social well-being of everyone, I think it's responsibility of all of us collectively as a community to help, right? And the framework itself already highlights some of the key points, right? Digital, financial, innovative channels, the product, ongoing structured training programs on financial inclusion and increased financial literacy. And one of the things that I'm looking forward to build with a lot of passionate people who shares the same cause is to build a social Takaful model where we align all these things to a common point to create a sustainable to continue to serve everyone. Again, coming back to that the important point that it's on us, everyone, as a community to help one another, right? To look at improving digital literacy, which is something that COVID-19 taught us, financial literacy, and offering inclusive Takaful products. And then I'll end my formal presentation on something that I actually mentioned back in 2021 when talking about inclusive Takaful and our aspiration at FDO Takaful to build a sustainable social Takaful model. Hopefully, in very near future, we'll be able to build an inclusive and sustainable Takaful model to ensure the underserved and unserved communities continue to be served. For everyone who's on the online or will have the chance to watch the recording, if you want to know more about value-based resources, including the research reports that were produced in the higher learning institutions that I've shared, and many more, actually a few more, you can visit our microsite at www.fw.com.my/VIT and have access to that. Just find your way through the microsite. You can then download the PDF of the reports. And with that, thank you again for the opportunity. I hope the sharing has benefit you in some way. Anything good comes from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Any mistakes or weaknesses is from myself. If you feel like connecting with me on LinkedIn, you can scan the barcode or visit my personal website. I do some sharings and even sharings on Takaful resources there. With that, wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and thank you very much.